Hey, coaches, welcome to Championship Culture. I'm super excited. Got a special guest. The great Randy Jackson is here with us, and he's going to answer our 5 questions today. And Randy, I appreciate you. I'm a fan of yours. I've got both your books, and I order all your PowerPoints and all that stuff off your website. But I want to take you through the 5 questions today, and because I know it's going to help a lot of people. So can you start out, even though I know everyone knows who you are, can you start out with that 1-minute elevator introduction?
Well, yeah, thanks, Joe. And I'll just try to first of all, thanks for having me. Like I appreciate what you do. You put a lot of stuff in my Facebook group that I read. And so, thanks for what you do for the coaching community. But so basically I just finished my 31st year, 21 as a head coach. And I started out in the smallest classification in Texas. At one time was the head coach at the biggest high school in Texas. But I'll be starting my 4th season now at North Forney, which is about 20 miles east of Dallas. And we are just kind of in that process, and got into the reason you're interviewing me now is in 2015, I started getting really, really intentional with the culture game, the mental game, and learning what core values were. Wrote a book, hope to sell 100 copies, and it's been really good for me. I'm over 7,000 copies on that now. And January 1st this past year, I released Culture Defeats Strategy 2. And so I just think culture is the new edge. And so I'm honored to be here.
Awesome. I'm halfway through the second one, and I'm loving it as much as I did the first one. And that first one was just a game changer for me and my program. Second question is what is your your working definition of culture? If you're going to explain culture to someone, how do you define it?
So that's a great question, because I think culture is that word out there that's just it's so overused maybe now. So culture for me is how you can get your program to think, speak, and act. And so I love to use this example, but after the Seahawks won a Super Bowl, a reporter went out there and interviewed every single person in the Seahawks facility. I say every, but custodians, secretaries, athletic trainers, and at the end of the day, she said, "Here's why the Seahawks are so awesome is because they all speak fluent Pete Carroll." And so that's what we're trying to do. And at North Forney, if you came to North Forney and ask our players what we're about, they're going to give you our core values: choose, compete, all that, discipline and all that. And so culture is a true culture is not a hope for the best. It's an intentional creation with systems where your players think, speak, and act the same way.
That's awesome. The third one, I want to get to this. This is more the nuts and bolts, but I did this myself the other day, and it was kind of difficult to narrow this thing down to 3 things, but I wanted to go, and I thought that was the power of your first book was, man, you laid down nuts and bolts. Here's how, I was the guy, I was interested in culture, but I didn't know how to do culture until really I read your book and got some of the Brian Cain stuff. So the third question is, what are the 3 best things you do to build culture in your program?
I think it is kind of like what you were talking about, Joe, is, I thought before I understood it's got to be about systems, right? And so before I got connected with Brian Cain, a guy who showed me systems, I think I did a pretty good job of making sure that we played hard and all that kind of stuff. But so the 3 most important things is to let your players in on it, right? You need to create a culture, but let your players be in on it. Players today are used to having a voice, right? When I was a kid, and probably when you were a kid, we didn't have much of a voice. Coach didn't really care what we thought. Our parents didn't ask us where we wanted to go out to eat, right? But kids today are different, right? They can like, retweet, share. I mean, every one of your players can be talking to somebody halfway around the world. studies show, and this is weird, okay, but there's a lot of kids out there, y'all, that have girlfriends and boyfriends they've never even met before, right? They're just in another state and they're virtual, right? I mean, they're, so players are, so create a culture and let your players be in on it. So I think that's a big deal. They want their voice heard. They're gonna what you're in on, you're in with. So let them be in on it. Okay, so create it, let them be in on it. I think you have to find a way to sell it. Okay, so it's your brand. So after you create it and let them be in on it, you have to sell it. And so for me, like I got to go to a PJ Fleck team meeting one time, and there was a song playing, and an assistant coach said, "Coach, there's never a song that plays here that's not intentional." And I'm like, man, that is crazy awesome, right? And so I started doing a better job with that. So our core values are based on days of the week. I don't think that's the only way you can do it, but for us, Monday is juice and tempo, and so Wednesday is blue collar tough. So when our players come in the facility and when they leave the facility, the song Tough Enough by the Fabulous Thunderbirds is playing. So I think a lot of people do a pretty good, like people who are in on this, they'll make core values. They'll brand it. So you got to have signs, you got to sell it, you got to emphasize it every day. But I don't think that most people do that part enough, right? So I feel like I'm kind of scattering around here, but so people that I talk to, that I work with, I can tell the light bulb goes off when I say you got to let them be a part of it and you got to sell it every day. So like I worked with a guy one time, and he bought all my books. He bought the first book for his staff. He put signs up everywhere and then didn't talk about it again. So I think that's a big deal. So like I was talking to my staff the other day, really with my offensive coordinator, and for us, I just started. I'm telling you, this is why I'll never get out of coaching. But Tuesday for us is competition Tuesday, and so we do a lot of 11 on 11, good on good. Monday and Tuesday are full pads, and we compete on Monday also. But anyway, bottom line is, so Monday is Juice Monday. And we're blue and black. And I said, Mike, what do you think about on Monday if we wore orange T-shirts for orange juice, right? And Juice Monday's on it. And on Tuesday, the offensive coaches wore green shirts and the defensive coaches wore red shirts. Now, we would have our core values on there. I think shirts are really powerful. So that's the kind of stuff I think that that people don't do, right? So you got to let them be a part of it. You got to sell it hard. You got to find systems, to brand it, those kind of things. And then I think you have to make sure the third thing is use social media, use the ways to use their love language, okay? Have a classroom setting every day. So you make core values, you brand it, you have systems to emphasize it every day. You do Leadership Academy where you can bring it home again, and use social media where you bring it to the community. So that's really kind of four things, but they're all really important. I know I just kind of glanced over the Leadership Academy, but we're going to find 10 or 15 minutes every day to talk about something important, and our core values are going to be in on that. And then we're going to use social media, WhatsApp, or some type of communication tool with our parents and players to always, control the message that way also.
That's awesome, Coach. I've heard you say that one about the music before. I think I heard you give that exact example, and I didn't grab it until just now. That's such an easy way to sell the brand. The next one, the $1 million question. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you first got started?
Man, this is an easy one for me. So before 2015, when I really got intentional about culture, I just thought like it was all like, I view NFL coaches as people that sit in a dark room and watch video, and I just hired a guy who got out of the NFL, and I asked him about the coaches' hours, and he said it is crazy. It's like 5 a.m. to, well, honestly, like 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. Okay, those kind of hours. And so that's kind of how I thought you had to do it. Is just watch video. And I didn't read books. You know, I didn't listen to podcasts. I didn't work out enough. I didn't take care of me. And so I didn't meditate. So that's the thing. One of the best things I think that I've learned is you got to take care of you. And so X's and O labs, there's so much information out there, y'all. When I started, there just really weren't, I mean, there were books out there, but they were more about, you know, how Baylor won the Southwest Conference Championship in 1980, right? It wasn't about how to create an intentional culture. There certainly weren't books out there. Honestly, there really weren't a lot of books out there about the difference in cover 2, 3, and 4. You know, there just weren't. And so there's so much information out there for young coaches is don't just focus on that, man. Read, listen to podcasts. I mean, and if you're in the car 20 minutes, quit listening to music and listen to something that's going to get you better. So I think for me, if I would have 20 years ago worked on me more and not watched every Seinfeld episode and read more, I'd be a much better coach now. I mean, just you know, there's so many books out there that doesn't have to be about football, but, you know, just about how the mind works and the psychology of the game is huge.
Awesome. I was just thinking as you were going through that, you know, you truly have impacted me and countless other. I know everyone. I think everyone talks about culture, but the ones that really, you know, take the deep dive on culture, you are one of the key people out there. You know, I think I can't remember if I got the idea of the core principles from Brian Cain or from you, but I know you were the one that made it real. You know, reading that first book and seeing the signals that you put with each core principle, you profoundly impacted me and my program and the kids that come through my program now because of what you did. You know, just having the guts to write that book and get this whole thing started. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you doing this, and I appreciate, you know, everything you've done. You've impacted, you know, not just the hundreds and thousands of kids that you coach, but you've impacted kids that I've coached and other coaches have coached now, and I appreciate it. The last one was just any social media contact information that you want to share, and then anything you want to promote. I know this second book, I just got my hands on it. Like I've been saying, I'm halfway through it, and it's just as good, if not better, than the first book, because it's talking about where you are now and that beginning process of the turnaround that you had to go through. And I've just been fascinated by it. I set a clock. I try to read 10 minutes a day, and every day that alarm will go off, and I'll sneak in another couple pages because it's so it gets you going through that process. So go ahead, share contact information that you want to give, and then anything you want to promote. I know your website. I ordered all the leadership PowerPoints, and I took my kids through the body language one was our April meeting, and they loved it. It was the first time, you know, you did such a good job putting those PowerPoints together with the video clips that it had them. Where I would get up there and talk too much, you put the work in, and then I stole all your work. So I appreciate it.
Well, that's my goal, right? And so y'all, so CoachRandyJackson.com. So here's what I used to just sell my first book on there, and then I think, man, we do some pretty cool stuff. Why wouldn't I put that out there for coaches? So I think every time you have a team meeting, if you can, use a movie clip, and this is all PJ Flex stuff, but, you know, Pete Carroll says you got to fascinate them. And so like Joe just said, you know, it's a big difference in you talking to your team or them seeing a video clip of Achilles, you know, taking down a giant, right? And so, but there's some offensive resources on there, head coaching, interview stuff. If you can subscribe to my website, I send emails about twice a week on culture, but really on anything that will help you move the needle. Right now, I'm in a series called Win the Interview, and talking about your packet and what to do in the interview process and things like that. I consider myself a teacher. I love teaching. It just gives me a rush, I think. I've been culture the whole time until I got real bored in the quarantine and started really selling clinics on my offense. In 2017, I was lucky enough to get a Baylor assistant when those guys couldn't find jobs. And so he really pulled the curtain back on Art Briles' offense that really is pretty hard to find out about. And we averaged 53 points a game in 17. I call it the fast and wide offense. And so that's on my website. And Joe was a part of that. And so anyway, that's went good. So basically anything you want to do as far as culture or interview or offensive stuff, then I have a good time trying to build relationships and talking about it. I'm Coach Jackson TPW on Twitter, and you can find me there. But anyway, I'm just honored to be here, Joe, and hope I can make some new friends out of this.
Well, I definitely appreciate it. I would appreciate, though, I did sit in on your Baylor, the first one you did on Zoom, and I know you wouldn't let any Texas coaches in there. So I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't let any North Carolina coaches in there now, because that was awesome stuff, and we've stole a lot of it. I can't wait to get to the kids and get our hands on it. But it's all the other stuff on there that, like I said, the PowerPoints are incredible. When you were talking about I haven't seen your interview packet stuff, but I just read in your book when you talked about, once you got interested in the place you are now, how your second or third meeting was when you interviewed the principal. And I highlighted that and started. I mean, I thought that was just incredible, that if you're going to make the, I always feel like it's the ham and the eggs thing for coaches. We're putting our butt on the plate, and then the principal's deciding how much they're going to. But your idea of interviewing them before you took the job, I thought was just a keeper. So, Coach, I appreciate you being on here, and thank you so much. And I'm going to continue to steal from you and learn from you. And I know you helped a lot of guys today.
Well, thank you, Joe. I'm going to continue to still learn from you too. And appreciate all you do for the coaching community, man. Great job on the podcast.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you so much.